Welcome back, everybody, to another power ranking video here at I'm Not a Coach. I'm your host, Dave Huerta. Thank you so much for joining us. And if you're new here, hey, welcome. Like and subscribe. It helps out the channel. Thank you so much. But let's get to it here. This is week 11, but we do have an honorable mention. This time it's only just one team that we're going to be talking about, and that is the Denver Broncos. Yeah, you know what you did. You know what you did, Denver. You had us. You had us thinking that you were going to do it. You had us believing, even non-Broncos fans were believing that it was going to happen. Everything was falling into place. Bo Nix was phenomenal. He wasn't world-breaking, but he was phenomenal. The defense was looking good. Special teams was looking good. And then finally they got into position for basically a chip shot, a 35-yard field goal. Oh, my God. And then, of course, Kansas City doing what they have done for the last year and a half, finding ways to win. Denver, regardless of that, regardless of the heartbreak, you were the closest team in nearly a year to be able to beat the Kansas City Chiefs. So, Broncos, you are an honorable mention this week. All right, let's get started with number 10, the Washington Commanders. This team is 7-3. They are coming off a loss. This is actually the only team in the power rankings with a loss. One that has to do with the opponent that they lost to. We'll talk about them later. But also just how good they were looking until basically the fourth quarter when they just disappeared. But regardless of the loss, this team is still explosive, massively explosive. Even though they trailed off at the end, when they go up against great teams, they're going to learn that they need to do different things. They're not just going to be able to rely on, Terry McLaurin just ripping off a 50-yard catch and run. It's just not going to happen. So they're learning. They were in the game. They had a chance to win there at the end, but you can tell that the experience of the Steelers, and not only on the offensive line, but on the defensive side as well, you can see the experience was the thing that really was able to get the victory for the Steelers. Commanders, tough loss, but they're going to learn from this, and they're going to continue to get better as the season goes on. So that's why they are still in the top 10 in the power rankings. Next, we have the San Francisco 49ers. So this team coming off a big victory against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. We've talked about the Bucs. They're dealing with some massive injuries, not only offensively, but they're also losing some guys on defense as well. So it may have not been the most impressive 23-20 victory so far, but San Francisco is a team that's also been dealing with injuries. They're without one of their top receivers. They barely got back Christian McCaffrey this past week, who didn't light it up, but 107 yards from scrimmage. It's a pretty darn good start, and I think he's only gonna get better as the season goes on. But on top of that, you have Jawan Jennings and Pearsall, two guys that were not expected to be massive contributors, at least or when the season began, but due to injury, due to the necessity to kind of thrust these guys in to the limelight, both Jennings and Pearsall are starting to become focal points in this offense, and they're getting better. They're starting to get a rapport with Brock Purdy. They're starting to make plays after the catch. You're seeing that slowly but surely. And that's only going to bode well for them as the season goes on, man. When you want to be playing your best football, not just your top guys. You want your third, your fourth options on offense and even on the defense. You want them to be able to get comfortable, start playing a lot better, and that's what I'm seeing from the San Francisco offense. Their defense has gotten healthy. They seem to be kind of fix some of the things that were kind of keeping them from creating turnovers, some pass rushing issues a couple weeks ago, but they seem to be phenomenal right now, and It's a right now they're still kind of in that little bit of a window where they don't look dominant, but this team has the ability to win and win many games in this back half of the NFL season. Next, we have a team. We're going to be staying in the NFC West, and we actually have a team that has not been, at least in my power rankings thus far, but they were an honorable mention last week, and that is the Arizona Cardinals. Arizona 6-4. They have won 4 consecutive games. One of the few teams in the NFL with a streak of 4 or more. So they are looking solid. Kyler Murray being efficient, not turning the ball over a whole lot, making explosive plays with his legs, with his arm as well, and getting as many guys involved in the entire offense from the running backs catching a bunch of passes, and then you have even some wide receivers getting some runs. So this offense is very versatile. It's going to be interesting what they can do the rest of the way, because of those 4 wins, been against the Chargers, Miami, the Bears, and the Jets. Chargers, they're one of the better teams in the NFL, and we're probably going to talk about them a little bit later. But those other 3 teams, the Jets, Miami, and the Bears, each one has had a game or two where they look good. But for the most part, these are probably teams that are not going to be competing for the playoffs. They are definitely not probably going to make the playoffs. Maybe Miami can do something. We'll see. But those, the Bears, the Jets, no. So the competition that they have faced over the last 4 games has not been the strongest. But at the end of the day, this is the NFL. A win is a win, doesn't matter. And that's what the Cardinals are doing. They are given the schedule that they are, and they're capitalizing on the opportunities, and they're winning games 4 consecutively. And just to kind of show you how good this team has been, not only offensively, but this defense over the last 4, basically the last month, has held teams to less than 15 points on average over those 4 wins. So they are making plays. They are not giving up a whole lot of points, and they're getting decent pressure on these quarterbacks. So the Arizona Cardinals are a team that is on the rise, and we're going to see as the schedule gets a little bit more tougher, we're going to see if they are for real or was it just an easy month for them. Next, we're going to go with the San Diego Chargers, who are looking better and better as the season goes on. They are 6-3. They've won 4 out of their last 5. And this offense is looking a little bit less erratic. Justin Herbert is not throwing for, the usual that we're used to seeing, close to 400 yards, maybe 2 or 3 touchdowns, but maybe a couple sacks, a couple interceptions here and there. He's been efficient. He's been smart with the ball. He's been taking what the defense is giving him, but he's also trusting his guys. He's trusting the offense. They're running the ball fairly okay. They're not dominant, but I think this past week they rushed for nearly $150. That offense looking a little bit better. They got the young receivers making plays, making not only contested catches, but on top of that, getting the ball in their hands and making yardage after the catch. So it's been phenomenal. Their defense, once again, I think this defense is going to needs a retooling. I think there are some spots where they're getting a little bit long in the tooth. And on top of that, you need some of these young guys to develop a little bit quicker than you want. But I think this is I think coming into the season, the Chargers knew this was I don't want to say a rebuild, but are we seeing the things that we want to see? Are we being efficient? Are we being smart with the ball on offense? Are we making plays? Are we making the simple things look simple? And on top of that, the defense hopefully can still make some plays. They got big names on that defense. I think the Chargers are going to be right there at the end of the year, probably fighting for the 6th and 7th seed. All right, next we have the Philadelphia Eagles. So Philly, I know what you're thinking. 6. This team is 7-2. They have been able to really look dominant at times throughout the last couple of weeks. But when you look at the teams that they have beaten, the Cowboys, who are an absolute train wreck, dumpster fire right now, the competition for the Eagles the last couple of games has not been the toughest, I would say. We got 3 teams that they've beaten over the last 5 that have 2 wins. one that has 3, and then the Bengals have 4. Once again, these are not world beaters. These are not playoff contenders. It's the competition for the Eagles. These are teams that they should be beating. So to put them any higher, I think would be a disservice to what could happen over the next month. Their schedule gets a lot harder. They start playing a lot more in their division, a lot more NFC top teams. It's going to be interesting what the next 5 games for the Eagles looks like compared to their previous 5 here. And I think you're going to really see what this team is. Are they still the same team that ended up losing basically 6, almost 7 out of their last 8 last year to finish off the year? Or is this a team that is gotten past that and now they are growing a new culture with Sirianni? But regardless, 7-2 record, they're going to be competing for the first seed. If they can beat the Commanders, I think they're going to be in the driver's seat to be able to potentially pull away just a little bit in this division. So that is the Philadelphia Eagles. Next, this is going to be a little bit of a surprise for some people. We have the Kansas City Chiefs at 5 here. So undefeated team, the only undefeated team so far in the NFL, 2-time defending Super Bowl champions. And they are 8 wins away from not only finishing with only, I believe, the third perfect regular season, but the first in the 17-game season era. So why have they dropped from, I think I had them last at 2. Why have they dropped 3? Well, part of that is that some of the teams that are ahead of them looked significantly better. They played a little bit stronger competition. But when you barely score 14 points against the Broncos, who have been good, granted they're 5-5, but they have been competitive. They've been strong. I don't think the Broncos would have missed that 35-yarder. If some of these games went the wrong way, I don't think we would be talking about the Chiefs as highly as we do. But the fact that they have won back-to-back Super Bowls, they're continuing to find ways, just barely, to win. And I think that's keeping them in the conversation of a team that is historically great. But man, the cracks in that offense are really starting to show. But we're going to see this next week against the Bills. Can they play that badly and still get a win against a team that is been playing phenomenal football? Maybe not the best in the NFL, but they have been pretty dang good against some decent competition. So that's why I have the Kansas City Chiefs at number 5. I'm probably wrong. Who knows? They might even just destroy the Buffalo Bills. But I think their play has not been to the standard that we have seen, but they have been able to find ways to win, which is also why they're in the top 5. Next, we have the Pittsburgh Steelers. And Pittsburgh, man, like, what can I say? This is a team that we were like, oh, they might win some games with Justin Fields, with Russell Wilson, but those 2 quarterbacks were basically discarded from their teams. And the Steelers were like, oh, yeah, we'll take them. We'll see. We're going to see what we can do, and we'll probably find a way to win because that's what the Steelers always do. So, on top of that, this week, Wilson, man, 3 touchdowns. Yes, he threw a pick, but he got over that pretty quickly. And, man, the guy just seems to be elevating, which is something we have not seen in a long time, but he is elevating the talent on that Steelers offense. George Pickens. We had Mike Williams, who was recently acquired from the Jets, another player that was basically discarded from his team. The running backs, both Harris and Warren, seem to be, once again, they're not putting up Derrick Henry numbers by any means, but they are playing efficient. It's a committee there in the backfield, and they're both playing pretty darn well. We streamed that game, and it was surprising how physical Najee Harris was playing in that one. Usually he's a kind of jump cut kind of guy, goes down fairly easily, but he was bowling people over a couple times, and Warren was just so fast, man. Small guy, but very powerful. We've always seen that. But, man, he was playing with some speed in those cuts. Just one cut and just hit the hole. So this whole offense is just playing phenomenal right now. And they also beat one of the best teams in the NFL, the Washington Commanders, who did not play a bad game. We kind of talked about them earlier, but they were explosive in that game. The Commanders, they were throwing it down the field. They were getting some big chunk plays. Jaden Daniels was extending plays, but the coverage sometimes was still very tight despite those extra 3, 4, 5 seconds. And that's a testament to the way the Steelers played in that second half. But on top of that, it's a testament to the Steelers defense. Seems to be playing better as the season goes on. Over the last couple of weeks, that defense has created a lot of pressure, a handful of turnovers as well, and they continue to just be just strong in their depth. They added Preston Smith, and who ended up coming in for the final couple drives there because Highsmith ended up getting hurt. Once again, that depth for the Steelers, man, on defense, just getting better and better. Russell Wilson is looking comfortable. He's playing confidently. Did you see how he was dancing after he got one of the Commanders' defensive linemen to jump off sides basically on 4th and 1 with the game on the line? This guy's having fun, dude, and his teammates love him right now. And that's contagious, man. When you're talking about a team that is winning, already has a culture of winning, but when you inject them with some new confidence, that's going to take you a long way, man. We're just going to see if this offense can continue to go. All right, next we have the Buffalo Bills. So Buffalo is 8-2. They have won 5 straight games. Josh Allen, despite him, I think he threw 2 picks and no touchdowns in this game. Despite that, they won by 10. I think it was a 30-20 victory over the Colts. Allen, over the last 3 games, he has thrown 4 interceptions, including obviously 2 this past week. So he has not been playing his best football over the last couple of weeks. Despite all that, the running game is solid. They were not as bad as they were last year. They're not as bad as they were in the beginning of the year. And I think that's what's helping this offense when Josh Allen doesn't save Buffalo when they're playing badly. These running backs have been efficient. We've talked about Ray Davis has been able to basically help the passing game even before they got Amari Cooper. Now when you get Amari, you get all these other guys that are playing, better football. They're a little bit young. They're younger, but they're getting more experience. And I think you're starting to see this offense not have to rely on Josh being the only guy that can make a play. So that's a big thing. And on top of that, this defense been pretty decent at getting to the quarterback. They may not rack up an insane amount of sacks, but they're making these quarterbacks uncomfortable in the pocket. They're collapsing it. They're playing the run fairly well, and that's keeping them in games. And then look at what they did to Joe Flacco in this offense. They picked up 3 interceptions and a fumble in this game, 4 turnovers, which is a big reason why they were able to hold them to 20, and also why Buffalo was able to score 30, because they were getting in pretty decent field position despite the offense maybe not having its most explosive day. So that defense playing a little bit better, making some big plays, which we have not seen them always do this season, especially coming into this next week against the undefeated Kansas City Chiefs. I like Buffalo's chance to be able to take advantage of the mistakes that Kansas City tends to make early in games this season, and hopefully they'll be able to hold on in the fourth quarter when Kansas City just decides to turn it on. All right, let's continue on. We got our final 2 teams. The next team, number 2, is the Baltimore Ravens. So Baltimore, 7-3. They looked phenomenal, man. They were fun to watch. The big thing that is holding this team back is their defense. That defense is rough, to say the least. There are times where it can make interceptions. There are times when that front 7 that has talent can get pressure, almost consistent pressure, drive after drive after drive. But then there are long stretches where they do not look great. They're not giving up a massive amount of points, but they as sure as heck have not been, holding every team to under 21 for sure. And this past week, they gave up 34 points, and they could have lost if the Bengals would have scored that 2-point conversion to try to win the game in regulation. And there's been other instances where they've, just like drive after drive after drive, teams have just been able to put up points against this team. Having said that, the thing that is keeping this team not only looking like they could be competing for the second seed is that offense. When Lamar and Derrick Henry are both on at the same time in the same game, they're going to win 99% of the time, it looks like. When you have one of them, you still have a pretty darn good chance to win, and that's what happened this past week against the Bengals. The Ravens could not run the ball to save their life against Cincinnati. Yeah, Cincinnati is not good against the run, guys. They are not good. That defense is god-awful, too. That whole defense from Cincinnati is pretty bad. It's a big reason why they have a losing record. But they were able to stop the Ravens. They were able to stifle Derrick Henry. But he did not have a great game, which is not many teams have been able to do that. Kansas City did it, and I'm trying to remember who else had a good game against Derrick Henry. It was within the last month, but yeah, there's not been many teams that have been able to hold him. But Lamar was on. Lamar was having a heck of a game, and he was able to will this team to a win. That run down the right sidelines to get them basically at the one. On top of that, you have young guys making plays. Tylan Wallace, the rookie, 115 receptions, had a big explosive play down the left sideline that really got that offense going again. And they're going to need guys like him. When Derrick Henry can't get it going, they need to find somebody else. Hopefully Wallace can continue to build off of this game because they're going to need him in the playoffs against the Steelers, like the Chiefs. The Ravens are there, man. Their offense is just, it's too scary, man. There's not many defenses that are going to be able to stifle both Derrick Henry and Lamar. If the Ravens can figure out what that defense needs, this team might be the best in the NFL. Moving on to the final team. It's no surprise. They were number one last week. They're number one again. And until somebody beats them thoroughly, it's going to be tough to dethrone the Kings, the Lions. Even with how badly they played in the first half, only 7 points, giving up 23 points to the Texans. Jared Goff having one of his worst games of his career, 5 interceptions, 2 of them in the first half, and then he had, 2 in the first 3 drives of the second. Like, it was bad. It was just, surprising. Again, that defense, who had been just so physical, you could tell that the Texans were very physical with them. They were matching them, and there has not been many teams in the NFL that have been able to do that against the Lions. Having said all that, there's a second half to every game, man. And the Lions woke up. They freaking just absolutely borderline dominated basically the latter half of the third all the way through the fourth. It was a slow trudge, but it wasn't just like a small dink and dunk here. Oh, we'll see what we can get. No, they were being physical. They started to be able to run the ball. Physically, explosive plays by Jahmyr Gibbs. He was racking up big yardage. It almost seemed like every other carry was a big explosive run in the fourth quarter. Did they tire the Texans out? Who knows? But either way, man, they were grinding away big chunks of yardage on the ground. And on top of that, they were hitting them over the top with some big, efficient passes. Nothing crazy, but just quick throws over the middle, and they were catching them with guys draped all over him. The coverage for the Texans was phenomenal, but the Lions they just woke up. They were like, no, we're not going to lose this. And then that was the offense. The defense didn't give up a single point in the second half. All the points that they gave up in the first half, 23 points, 0 in the second. And they freaking handled that Texans offense. They racked up 4 sacks on C.J. Stroud. They got 2 interceptions. They made him very flustered. That's tough to do, man. This kid always seems to be poised. You could tell he was angry, man. When I think he was sacked the 3rd time, and the 4th time, You could clearly tell. And I think he was yelling at some of his teammates. And granted, I was like, yeah, man, come on, man. We got to put this team away. And the Lions were not going to be put away. They came back and they took a 52-yard field goal to win. But dang, dude, they look like a team that if you kept on giving them the ball, they're going to find points. And that's what they did this week. And that's why they're still the number one team. Because despite having one of the worst halves that they've ever had in probably the last 2 years, they somehow were able to beat a very talented team. Yes, granted, they're dealing with some injuries on the offense, some below average play on their offensive line. To be able to beat a team like that and give up 0 points and just grind away, and then finally basically break them, and then just getting big explosive runs and catches, that is a mark of a team that has the ability and probably is going to be a legitimate contender for a Super Bowl win. They are the most complete team in the NFL. When you combine everything, and even their special teams is pretty damn good. You saw the kicks. When you combine everything, and including coaching, there is not a better team right now than the Detroit Lions. That is it, guys. That is the power rankings for week 11. Let me know what you think of these power rankings. Am I right? Am I wrong? Do you agree? Do you disagree? Do you think I'm an idiot? I mean, you're probably right, but it's okay. And let me know in the comments below. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll catch you guys later. And once again, my name is Dave, and I'm not a coach.